Yeah, just a minute and then we can begin. Dr. Kaur, you can please begin.
Yeah. A very good morning to one and all present. I, Dr. Amrita Kaur from Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, welcome you all joining from across the country to today's inaugural session of the one-week online faculty development program on academic research writing. Currently, we all know that the teaching faculty is missing their lively interactive sessions in the classroom due to the ongoing pandemic situation. However, the immense benefits and reach of online courses in the present academic setup has encouraged the collaboration of Teaching Learning Center, Ramanujan College, and Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, University of Delhi, for the second time to offer this online one-week faculty development program for the faculties across the country from all disciplines. We had earlier collaborated for a 2-week online faculty development program, which had turned out to be a huge success last year. We hope the same success for this academic initiative as well. Let me just give you a brief introduction about the two collaborating organizations of this FTP. The Teaching Learning Center of Ramanujan College works under the Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Mission on Teachers and Teaching under the Ministry of Human Resource Development. One of the main objectives of this mission is to facilitate teacher training by constituting teaching learning centers in various institutions of higher education in our country. It is envisioned that the teaching learning centers will accelerate the teaching learning process by encouraging independent, critical, and creative thinking and facilitating research for subject-specific growth. The collaborating institution, Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, University of Delhi, is a constituent college of the university that has been imparting higher education in commerce, humanities, and social science for more than 4 decades now. The college has been accredited with a grade A 3.36 score by the National Assessment and Accreditation Council. The college has strived to impart excellence and to provide quality education by distinguishing itself in diverse academic and professional fields by providing a vibrant and intellectually stimulating academic culture to promote the independence of thought and vision. Let me now introduce the topic to the FTP to the audience. Academic writing is the most interesting as well as significant process of any research endeavor. The process of writing an academic paper or dissertation can be extremely different from other types of writing, English writing. Writing academically implies having a structured, evidence-based, and formally tonality. Researchers often lack the specific skill set to plan the writing process systematically, owing to negligence of training in writing skills at different educational levels. The lack of writing study centers makes the situation more grim. In this backdrop, the present faculty development program on academic research writing aims to train the participants with the skill set beneficial in the process of academic writing. Even though each discipline may have a range of writing conventions, vocabulary, and discourse, there are certain components of the process which are common to every subject area. The program will contour these aspects to systemize and thereby facilitate streamlining of the entire writing process. It will equip the participants with the major components involved in writing a dissertation or a research paper. The overall objective of this FTP is to blend the ITC application in the process of writing to make the process seamless and enjoyable. I now invite Professor K. Latha, Coordinator IQAC Ramanujan College, for the welcome address for the participants of this faculty development program. Ma'am, over to you, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Amrita. A very good morning Professor Sinha, Principal, Shahid Bhagat Singh College. Professor Dubey, Fellow IQAC Coordinator, Shahid Bhagat Singh College. Our chief guest for this FDP program, Professor for this inaugural session, Professor Dhananjay Singh, Center of English Studies, JNU. I, on behalf of Principal Ramanujan College, Professor S.P. Agarwal, and the organizing team, feel honored to welcome the dignitaries and the participants to the one-week faculty development program on academic research writing organized by Teaching Learning Center of Ramanujan College in collaboration with IQAC Shahid Bhagat Singh College, University of Delhi. It has been a beautiful and satisfying journey for all of us at Teaching Learning Center Ramanujan College. With this is one of the achievements of Ramanujan College under the dynamic leadership of Professor S.P. Agarwal. The journey of organizing capacity building programs started for us exactly 4 years ago, and with more than 100. Yeah, please kindly mute yourself. With more than 145 faculty development programs and faculty induction programs, refresher courses in both offline and online formats, we have successfully completed these many programs. And today, with around, I think, almost 250 plus, I do not know the exact number, it was 200 plus until yesterday, participants, and with a thoughtful and carefully curated one-week program on academic research writing, I welcome all of you to this faculty development program. Like Amrita Kaur just now mentioned about the importance of academic research writing. We at Ramanujan also catch various facets of academic training, including sometimes it is refresher courses, intense training in particular subjects, and sometimes it is interdisciplinary. So this is one such FDP wherein we have academic research writing, which many faculty members and students feel they need guidance in writing for important and the well-known international journals. So with this, I really apologize once again to the participants and the dignitaries present here for the delay in starting this because of some technical issues. And I welcome all of you to the inaugural session. Without any further delay, I hand over the mic to you, Amrita.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your welcome address. Moving further, let me now invite Professor Sudhir Kumar Sinha, Principal Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, to say a few words on the occasion. Sinha sir, over to you. Sir, you are on mute. Can you please unmute, sir?
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yes, sir, please.
Professor Dhananjay Singh from JNU, chief guest of this inaugural session of the Faculty Development Program. Professor K. Lata from Ramanujan College, conveners of this FDP, Saurabh Dubey and Dr. Nikhil Rajput, IQAC coordinator of Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, Professor C.S. Dubey, and course coordinator of this FDP, Dr. Amrita Kaur, distinguished guests and participants. I welcome you all to this FDP program organized jointly by Teaching Learning Center of Ramanujan College and Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College. The purpose of this FDP is like other refreshment courses is enhancement and upgradation of knowledge, skill enhancement, and providing opportunity for professional development of the participants of the FDP. This FDP has been especially organized keeping in line with the recently launched National Education Policy. national education policy envisages motivated, energized, and capable faculty, catalyzing quality academic research, and improving teaching learning environment. I would quote from National Education Policy document, knowledge creation and research are critical in growing and sustaining a large and vibrant economy, uplifting society and continuously inspiring a nation to achieve even greater heights. A robust ecosystem of research is perhaps more important than ever with the rapid changes occurring in the world today. In the realm of climate change, population dynamics and management, biotechnology, and expanding digital marketplace, and the rise of machine learning and artificial intelligence. If India is to become a leader in these disparate areas and truly achieve the potential of its vast talent pool to again become a leading knowledge society in the coming years and decades, the nation will require a significant expansion of its research capabilities and output across disciplines. Today, the criticality of research is more than ever before for the economic, intellectual, social, environmental, and technological health and progress of a nation. The societal challenges that India needs to address today, such as access for all its citizens to clean drinking water and sanitation, quality education and healthcare, improved transportation, air quality, energy, and infrastructure, will require the implementation of approaches and solutions that are not only informed by top-notch science and technology, but are also rooted in a deep understanding of social sciences and humanities and the various socio-cultural and environmental dimensions of nation. Facing and addressing these challenges will require high-quality interdisciplinary research across fields that must be done in India and cannot simply be imported. The ability to conduct one's own research also enables a country to much more easily import and adapt relevant research from abroad. I've quoted from NEP document, और आप ये देखेंगे कि ये जो नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी अभी आई है उसका फोकस है क्वालिटी रिसर्च इन higher educational institutions, in colleges and university. And this FDP has been organized especially in a way that participants are able to benefit from it, and this would lead to quality research in higher educational institutions. Without saying much, I wish all the best to organizers, and I'm quite confident that this FDP would prove quite fruitful to the participants of the FDP. Thank you. Amrita, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Now I invite Professor C.S. Dubey, Coordinator IQAC Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, to say a few words on the occasion.
Yeah, very good morning to you all. Respected Honorable Chief Guest for the day, Professor Dhananjay Singh, Chairman, English Studies Center, JNU, Professor S.P. Agrawal, Director, Center, Teaching and Learning Center, Ramanujan College, Principal, he's also Principal, Professor C. Lata, our respected Principal, Professor S.K. Sinha, Conveners, Nikhil Rajput, Saurabh Dubey, Course Coordinator, Amrita Kaur, and Dr. Shukla, Bipin Rathi, Ashish Shukla, Sachin Tomar, Pooja Sharma, the organizing vibrant team members.
Sir, you've gone mute. Please unmute yourself.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I extend warm welcome to you on behalf of IQAC Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College for this 7-day FDP program. Actually, the idea of academic research writing was born in a meeting of IQAC in our college itself, where one of our esteemed members, Dr. Ajit Misra, former Vice Chancellor of NIPTEM, a member of our IQAC team, suggested that there should be an academic writing. Then in the capacity of IQAC coordinator of the college, I had realized in the last 6-7 months, while I was going through the papers for promotions and other things, that it is still required. And that would be the best part to organize FDP. And I am thankful to Saurabh, who took the burden, and then he coordinated with Ramanujan College, as he had already done it, experimented in the past. So basically today's inaugural program is a brief introduction to the academic writing. But when we go through all 7 days, our participants and scholars would explore many more things relevant to the research writing. Writing a paper in an essay format, is it a research paper? That is a question. Or writing a research paper is a piece of academic writing that provides analysis, interpretation, and argument based on in-depth, independent research. Writing a research paper also requires you to demonstrate a strong knowledge of your topic. Engage with a variety of sources and make an original contribution to the debate or the field which you are carrying on. Basically, what we see that a research paper is, while addressing a particular topic, is unable to raise certain research questions that will lead it to contribute to the field of research in general. In particular, we are also unmindful of many hasty decisions taken in the research, while it is a rigorous process, and therefore it requires on the part of the researcher to go through the nuances of research writing, following the principles of research writing, which includes hypothesis, introduction, hypothesis, methodology, and of course, ethical practices followed in academic research writing. And therefore, plagiarism is one issue which we are often encountering here and there. The second highlight of this session, to my mind, would be making a research proposal for a project or a research proposal while you are submitting to an institution or a learned body. So research proposals should be built on a concrete plan to conduct academic or scientific research. Amrita, in her introductory address, rightly pointed out that it may differ. The lexicon may differ from subject to subject, genre to genre. But the basic spirit of the paper, the basic methodology of all these genres or discipline remain the same. And that is the systematic, procedural follow-up of the rules and regulations, or prescribed methodology or tips for writing research. Now, the question that arises here is writing academic project. An academic project, when most of our teachers submit academic proposal or project. Recently, we had invited from amongst the teachers of our college to submit research proposal for project, innovative project that we had launched this year under the aegis of the IQAC and Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College. So what again I realized that there are certain things which must be taken care of. Therefore, this FDP, as it has been laid down in its theme, would address academic project writing as well. What is academic project writing? Academic project writing is a formal document whose major sections include abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology, results, discussion, and recommendations. Ultimately, your research paper or a proposal or a project outcome must cap off or must round off, leaving the question for the future researchers that what I can get from it, and that results in citations, in discussion of your paper or review of your paper. So the process of writing and presenting academic project is guided by certain rules. These rules are further guided by methodology applied, logical follow-up of the hypothesis, analysis and critical presentation of the ideas, ethical principles of writing, and resolution of the final research question. What is final research question? It is presentation of the outcomes in terms of the ideas, statistics, data, and the methodology applied during the course of research. So what you in general call outcomes of the research, or roughly we can say conclusion. The aims and objective of this program are enhancing the academic and intellectual environment in institution by providing faculty members with enough opportunities to pursue research and also participate in seminars, conferences, workshops. Participation in such program would enable them, the faculty members and the participants, to update their research paper, writing skills, and pedagogical skills which they apply in a classroom situation. Time and again, I had been speaking about the outcomes. So I would like to dwell upon outcome briefly here. The outcome is a resolution, as I told you, of the final research question through presentation of key findings from the research itself. Researchers and scholars identify the target audiences. Who is going to be your target audience? Is it institution? Is it academia, scholars, research scholars, students, or industry, or community? So we have to keep in mind the target audience, the outcome, and then consider the value of the research for the targeted audience, as I mentioned right now. To my mind, the outcomes must answer the following questions. What are those questions? These questions are, how it is going, my research project or my research proposal or my research paper, how is it going to help future researchers? Right. How will it help community, industry, and academic world? Then, does my research paper quantify the results in terms of relevance to different fields or the applied field? Question number 4, how is it going to help the researchers in academic institutions and other related fields. Is it useful for institutional research or industrial research, depending on your chosen area of research? Then, whether some relevant papers, research materials were published or produced during the course of the project or the research writing, that should be also kept into mind. Basically, we will also see that how far the methodologies applied were effective to the results of the research. And if we address these issues, we hope that it would give us a reply to the basic question, to the final research question, which we are going to present in our paper. As it has been laid down earlier, that the themes of this FDP are elements of academic writing, distinguishing from non-academic writing. So how the academic writing is different from non-academic writing? Say an article in a newspaper or in a magazine, or you write a piece of write-up for your college magazine. How this is difficult. So the eminent resource persons would reflect on those areas. Then literature review and formulating the research question. The research question which I was just telling you about. Then writing a proposal. How to write a proposal. How to write a research proposal in concrete terms with concrete measures and principles of writing. Then writing a proposal reference management tools. What are those tools? What are those tools which you apply to the for writing a research paper? So and then best practices, ethics in research writing. This is equally important. And last but not the least, academic journal finder and research publication. So to my mind, when we were discussing this with Saurabh and one of our resource persons, for formulating the theme of the topics, these were some of the ideas which emerged. And I think that this FDP, Ramanujan College, has already included all those parts. And therefore, it is going to be a big opportunity for researchers, academic scholars, as well as participants for the days to come. Hope our eminent resource persons would address the nuances of the academic research writing, and they will also sensitize them to the pertinent questions in research and academic writing, further encouraging, motivating the participants for effective, original academic writing. So happy learning, and I hope that that it would be a worth good experience for all of you. And with these words, I stop here with all the best wishes to the organizers, team members, conveners, co-conveners, Ramanujan College, particularly, and Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, and all members of IQAC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words. Moving further, today we have with us Professor Dhananjay Singh, Head Center for English Studies, JNU, as our keynote speaker. Before we get the privilege of listening to him, let me just give a brief introduction about our guest. Dhananjay Singh is a professor and chairperson at the Center for English Studies and Associate Dean, School of Language, Literature and Cultural Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, where he teaches courses on comparative poetics, Indian aesthetics, Indian philosophy of English or of language and theatre, South Asian fiction, and modern Irish literature. He has published research articles and essays in these areas. He is the author of Fables in the Indian Narrative Tradition, an Analytical Study, 2011, and The Poetics of Theatre in Early India, 2021. He was a visiting professor at the University of Bergamo, Italy in 2014, International Visiting Fellow at Grinnell College, USA in 2015, and Visiting Research Fellow at Trinity Long Room Hub, Trinity College, Dublin in 2017. For his research on Simas Hine and Buddhist epistemology in a comparative framework, he was awarded research secondment by the European Union's Marie Curie International Research Exchange Scheme to the project Social Performance, Cultural Trauma, and Re-establishing Solid Sovereignties at Trinity College, Dublin in July 2017. Professor Singh's poems have appeared in literary journals Moose India and South Asian, I'm so sorry for my pronunciation, and South Asian Ensemble. His debut short story, The Train and the Tunnel, was published in the Bombay Review in August 2020. We are honored to have you with us, sir. May I now take the privilege to invite our keynote speaker, Professor Dhananjay Singh, for his inaugural address. Sir, over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this kind introduction, Dr. Amrita Kaur, coordinator of this program from Shahid Bhagat Singh College. Professor S.P. Agarwal, principal and TLC director, Ramanujan College, University of Delhi. Professor Sudhir Kumar Sinha, principal, Shahid Bhagat Singh College. Professor Lata, Professor S.C. Dubey, Professor Saurav Dubey, Dr. Nikhil Rajput. Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity. And I'm really sorry. I know the delay was because of me. I was at my office and suddenly the electricity went off and the network was pretty unstable there. Sorry for that, and it's a really a wonderful feeling, I must say, being part of this very important program that is being organized by you, by Ramanujan College, and by Shahid Bhagat Singh College on academic writing, academic research writing. That's how you term it. Well, that is one of the questions that is relevant, of course, in academic writing. How do you use terms as such, and how do you structure terms, basically? So I'll just take, I think I have about 20 minutes, and I'll try to raise some questions which might be relevant, I hope, and will stay with you during this program, this course as such. Academic writing or research writing, as all of us know, is an kind of activity, based endeavor. So there's no way that one could actually give a lecture on academic writing. The best way, for instance, is to discuss and interact about different challenges and the processes of academic writing. And I'm sure that's going to happen in the different sessions that you're going to have in this program. Nevertheless, I'll try to articulate some of the issues that are germane to academic writing, that I'm sure all of you already engage with these, basically. So So when we talk of academic writing, or when we talk of academic, of course, there are certain assumptions, obviously, like there are assumptions when we use any important word. So academic, of course, implies that all of us belong to a group, basically, to a specific group, basically. And etymologically, of course, the word academic and academia, the reference to Plato, of course, Plato's school, obviously, where his academy as such, where mathematics was a very important subject. I mean, no one without mathematics could enter Plato's academy. So obviously, which means that it's a kind of a closed group, right? Group of scholars as such, or aspiring scholars or scholars. And like any other activity, like the craftsmen, for instance, craftsmen and craftswomen, for instance, engage with a certain kind of activity, like the carpenter. If I continue to use Plato's paradigm, we as members of the academy as such work in a certain group with certain tools and certain assumptions, basically, and that's what implies that we are different as such. We are different, so obviously our language would also be different, right? Because a poet uses a different language, a craftsman uses a different language, people involved in different activities, lawmakers use a different language, lawyers use a different language, and obviously lawyers, when part of the academy, of course, would use a different language, would borrow from law. But what I'm trying to say is this: there is, as Professor Dubey and Amritaji, both of you are mentioning, that obviously there are intergeneric relationships, obviously. Now, when it comes to research, as you know, that the research again makes it more specific. Like, not every activity in the academia would be considered research that way. Like, if, let's say, if you are asked to guide your student in writing a book review, which is important, which can be considered as a part of research, but would it be appropriately called research? I'm from English studies, so obviously I'll borrow some of the examples from English studies. So there lies the difference between the critic and the scholar as such. Critic and a scholar, which can be used in the context of other discourses as well, other disciplines as well. So let's say an economist, for instance, studies an economic phenomenon, let's say, and writes a paper to make somebody to make readers aware of certain things. That could be that's a different kind of writing, a research writing, obviously. Now, all these might seem abstract. Basically, what I'm talking about, or what we've heard from Professor Dubey, might seem abstract, but they all manifest in the kind of writing that we are supposed to do in academia, in form of whether journal article or thesis or dissertation. So the difference between critic and scholar is important. A critic is somebody, whether it's a critic, literary critic, or a critic of economic literature, let's say, a literature of economics or law or of politics as such, is somebody who, let's say, reads Kautilya's Arthashastra and writes a paper on relevance of Kautilya. Well, is that research? I mean, because research involves investigation, involves inquiry, and what is termed as scientific investigation. Scientific in the sense that an investigation which is based on reason as such, which is based on evidence as such. So that's what research is: a scientific investigation, scientific inquiry into objects of knowledge. That's what research is. And then comes writing, the third important term in the title that of your program. Now, what is writing, therefore? Now, one can go on and talk about what is writing and the relationship with writing with let's say, speech and all. That would be pretty abstract, and that's what we're not supposed to do in research writing. Research writing needs to be focused. So when I'm talking writing right now, if I go on talking about, let's say, that writing is a representation of speech, and historically there has been a difference as to what is important, speech or writing. Oral traditions, of course, validate speech, written traditions, validate writing. Now, that is something we normally encounter when Professor Dubey was talking about research proposals. I mean, with the limited let's say, experience of having gone through research proposals, various institutions, one generally finds that the candidate is not coming directly to the object of analysis, to the object of knowledge as such. So more often than not, what happens in research writing is this, that we get controlled by the writer, or the researcher as such gets controlled by this whole universe of terms and terminologies as such, and gets on using, kind of in abstract sense, basically. So that's what is something that we should not be doing as researcher as such. So now when I say writing here, I would like to make some kind of basic fundamental points, obviously, and the relationship between writing and knowledge as such. Writing and knowledge as such is this, that, and when you say writing, we mean, of course, language as such, research language as such. And what is research language as such? What is the relationship between the research language and the object of study, or the object of knowledge as such? That's something that we will remain with. And are there some kind of Indian ideas? By Indian, of course, I mean pre-modern Indian, of course, where my expertise to some extent lie. I'll also make a reference to these, basically. Now, so when we talk of writing, and when we talk of research writing, we need to make that distinction that writing has different objectives, and research writing is a writing, of course, which does not aim to express an opinion, or to create an effect as such, to create an effect. That is not the objective of research writing, and therefore, I mean, and it reflects in our sentences, in the words and vocabulary that we choose generally. So research writing is the writing, therefore, which aims for understanding, in the sense that the reader, when he or she reads a work of research, whether an article or a thesis or dissertation, expects to develop an understanding, of a certain topic, a certain area of knowledge, a certain problem of knowledge, to be precise as such. And therefore, in our style, for instance, the style of writing. So there are a few things, of course. Style of writing. I'm in talk, please. I'll call later. So normally, kind of, yes. So the style of writing should not. What is style, after all? What is style? Generally, like in literary studies, we know that style is something which every writer aims to have, basically. So if you're a writer, if you're a poet, and a reader reads a line of you, or a passage, for instance, or a short story, a reader more often than not, can guess that this piece is by this writer, if the writer happens to be prolific. So in the sense that a writer leaves an impression upon style in general, has her own style. That is not something that we encounter, that we should ideally have in research writing, basically, because research writing is objective, purely objective as such, highly objective. And it reflects in the way we construct our sentences. If we kind of spend time on each word, on each phrase, each sentence that one actually constructs, one can always kind of sort of reflect whether one is being purely objective, because the object of research writing is not expression of the self as such. It's not expression of the self. The object of research writing is to analyze, to investigate, as I said, to inquire into an object of knowledge. Now, one may say that in terms of language, and therefore, to complete this point, there is no style, one should say, or the writing should be so transparent that one cannot, it should not be possible for a reader to kind of glimpse into the thoughts and opinions of the researcher. Now, you might say that it's pretty ideal because we are all bound by our ideologies as such, right? We see a world from a certain point of view. There are different points of view, different worldview as such. In a research paper, if a research paper is too kind of predetermined as such, or premeditated, based on a premeditation of a certain line of interpretation without without it being seriously investigated, that's not the kind of writing that we should be kind of aiming to achieve. Now, so writing, to use a philosophical term, of course, is ontological as well as epistemological. What I mean here is this, that obviously we use all our secondary sources. All our secondary sources are in form of writing, basically, right? And secondary sources are so important for research. So those secondary, the secondary sources are an object of writing, and of course the writing that we do as such also is an object of writing, and in between you have writing as a means as such, as a methodology as such. So that's something that we should be kind of aware of. I was talking about the Indian context of these thinkings, for instance. In all Indian schools of philosophy, for instance, Shabda Praman, or Shabda as such, is extremely essential. More often than not, what we tend to experience in language, in research language, is the error of judgment. Error of judgment in the sense that judgment is a faculty which, of course, philosophically is about connecting the universal with the particular. That's a human faculty, basically. That's what judgment is in normal kind of normal understanding. Also, when, let's say, we are a country of cricket, when a great player makes a mistake, the player already knows all rules of the game, and we say that that's an error of judgment. The error of judgment, because the particular delivery that a player faces, she makes to connect that delivery, the angle and all that details, connect that with the rule of the game, basically, that if a ball is balled at this speed, normally approximately at this speed, from this angle, turning this way, then the best way to play this is the shot is this. So there's a universal understanding, and there's a particular case, basically. In research writing, in one way, basically, we are all the time doing that. I mean, we have those words, we have those concepts as such, and then we have a particular situation, whether we are reading a certain text in literary studies, or whether we are actually studying data, for instance, sampling data that happens in the social sciences as such. How is it that we can connect the particular objects of study with the universal kind of ideas, also the universal concept that we have? So more often than not, the first kind of stage as such in research writing doesn't begin with writing, basically. It doesn't begin with writing. It begins with thoughts, basically. So if there is a clarity of thought, as a clarity of thinking, in other words, there are thought structures that kind of manifest in sentence structures or word structure. So the problem begins in thinking as such. That's where one should start with when one is kind of discussing or planning, to kind of improve or discuss or interact on research writing as such. That's where one should begin. Now, as I said, Shabda is a praman in the Indian tradition. In all Indian schools of philosophy, and they talk of the relationship between words and meanings as such. What kind of relationships exist between words and meanings? Do words construct meanings, or words reflect meaning, or manifest meaning as such, or produce meaning as such? And as writers, as research writers, having to do with a certain kind of knowledge, to repeat, for instance, in research, even students of literature, for instance, we are not kind of we are not producing writing with an aim to create an effect, for instance, right? All writers, all poets, they struggle to get the right word, as you know. They struggle to get the right word, right? In 20th century, there's been a lot of kind of theories in poetry, both in India as in the West. In India, previously, of course, 10th, 11th century, Anandavardhan, Abhinavgupta, and all that. In the West, mostly the 20th century, France, Mallarmé, England, Hulme, and others. The whole idea, and this is relevant to research writing, the whole idea of all these poets basically was how to get the exact word to convey the turn of thought or the turn of feeling, because the assumption was that the language was quite common in the sense that it was overused. Of course, it has been overused in normal to express normal day-to-day experiences, and the poets were gifted with a special kind of a consciousness, special idea, specific idea, unique idea upon deep reflection given by imagination. So the poets therefore had to kind of struggle to get, as T.A. Hulme would say in Romanticism and Classicism, to get the exact curve of thing, or as Anandavardhan in Dhvanyaloka would say, to get the dhvani as such, the right dhvani as such. Now, or Kuntak, for instance, Kuntak in Vaprokti Jivita would say to get the Vichitra Abhidha as such. Now, the scholar, what does the scholar aims at? The scholar aims at to get the exact curve of the fact. Now, one may be reading, let's say, a series of secondary literature, let's say on climate. Let's say one is working on climate, a climate crisis, which is such an important discourse now. Reading secondary sources, and if it's a case study, then obviously one goes and study. If one is in environmental sciences, or let's say even in literature and other kind of, because literature is so interdisciplinary, and one goes to, let's say, Uttarakhand and does some sort of a survey on the effect of global warming on a certain place. Then what is one aiming at? One is aiming at, obviously, to get when it comes to writing, basically, once it comes to writing, get to translate what the poet is wanting to achieve, to get the exact curve of what? Not the exact curve of emotion as such, but the exact curve of fact, basically, and to kind of render this fact in terms of building structures of fact. So essentially, that is the difference between non-academic writing and academic writing, which is the difference between, let's say, emotions and facts. A writing, therefore, which does not expresses perceptions, because perceptions are never pure. Perceptions are never pure. We never see anything as such. Philosophically, we never see anything. We always see something as something. There's always a gap, basically. We see rupa. Rupa is a very important term in philosophy. Rupa does not mean appearance, basically. Rupa is that through which we see an appearance, that through which we have an appearance. That's what is the meaning of rupa. In other words, we are not dealing with perceptions as such. There's not much of I and you and we in research writing. You can say, we had it reminds me of a conference in a long time back, obviously, a poet, an aspiring poet. Not that I was too kind of, anyway, so a poet coming to a conference, and she was also there to participate in poetry reading. And since the conference, it was thought that, could invite the poet also to kind of make a presentation on literature and emancipation. broadly speaking, that was the topic. And the poet would say that, well, this is how I see it. I mean, this is how I see it, or I argue as such, or I view it as, no matter how you use, which kind of methodology that you use as such. This is not research writing. Research writing is a writing, therefore, has to have the absolute kind of objectivity, and as it reflects in the kind of language that one writes. So how should one translate this then? Well, it actually comes to the fact that, well, I mean, as I said, this could only be discussed more in the form of a workshop rather than in form of a lecture as such, because it all kind of depends so much on interaction, basically. But more or less, in research language, what do we have are, of course, nouns. Obviously, nouns, both concepts and perceptible objects as such. So both abstract and concrete as such, both class and particular as such, right? Class and particular. So nouns, verbs, primarily nouns and verbs, basically, and the relationships, and adjectives and adverbs. So generally, in research writing, what one sees is that we have problems with adjectives and adverbs. Not that they're not important. Adjectives and adverbs are extremely important. Why they're extremely important? Because obviously, when you talk of noun and verb, a noun stands for an object of study, let's say, name or an object of study. Verb is for action, basically, and these are two primary, of course, not only primary components of sentence, but also primary components of human cognition, basically. Now, in research writing, what one is aiming at is to how to translate one's understanding to language, basically. That is what one is aiming at. More often than not, maybe due to lack of practice and awareness, of course, there's some problem. There's some problem that happens. One problem that usually you might find with your student is this, that one is unable to come clearly to the point as such, point of discussion, or what one wants to see, that gap between thought and language. That, of course, goes away with practice. More generally, we have to be a little careful when we use adverbs and adjectives. As I said, they're very important, because if nouns are for objects of study and verbs are for activity or action as such, right? Adjectives are for qualities and attributes. Every noun has an attribute. Every verb has an attribute that goes to adverb, basically. So what I'm trying to see is that's important. But let's say, if I can give an example, for instance, that you say excellent sampling of data on employment. Let's say data on employment, excellent sampling of data on employment. What excellent has no business to be here. There's no business to be here, because it seems that it comes from the researcher's own kind of uncritical opinion as such, or uncritical. I mean, it has an effect on the researcher. But on the contrary, if one says that's dense population. Now, dense population, of course, dense is a critical word. It's an adjective. It's also an adjective. Or let's say dense fog as such, for, let's say, an environmentalist. So dense fog. It's also an adjective, but it's an essential attribute of the noun fog as such. Therefore, it has to be if you don't use it, then of course one is not conveying a fact, basically. One is not conveying a fact, one is not conveying an argument. So there are two objectives that one sees in research writing. One, of course, is certainly facts, and then arguments, obviously. Arguments, that there are facts, and one kind of makes an argument out of the facts, basically. Before this, of course, there's an interpretation of literature and what facts that one is engaging with as such. Similarly, if you say, in terms of adverbs, we tend to use adverbs where we don't need to use adverbs. Like, it's a highly congested area in Delhi. The study is based on a survey conducted in a highly congested area in Delhi. Now, you say that if you say highly congested area, that yes, I mean, because the word congested, depends to a great extent on this attribute as such. But so of course, the highly congested area in Delhi is essential. But you say highly complex conditions. Now, highly doesn't add anything to complex as such. It seems an abstract phenomena. So what I'm trying to say is this: these are all basic kind of facts of language, but since perhaps we're not oriented towards, or our students are not oriented towards thinking clearly as to the requirements of research writing, which is a different kind of research writing, one does experience that one actually tend to kind of fall into this old trap of writing more generalized languages or generalized sentences. To give another example, let's say, I'll keep to environment. A sentence like this, for instance, like a lot of I'll read this sentence. A lot of environmentalists believe that a serious climate disaster is sure to happen in the near future. So I'll repeat: a lot of environmentalists believe that a serious climate disaster is sure to happen in the near future. The research has revealed that erratic flooding is due to global warming. Right. On the face of it, it might seem to convey a meaning, but in terms of the requirements of research as such, which again is to keep to the facts as such, keep to the facts that can be supported by evidence as such, keep to the facts and not to vague statements, unclear statements, abstract statements. There are some serious kind of flaws in the way these two sentences are composed and kind of are constructed, and in fact the choice of vocabulary is a big problem. So let's say it begins with a lot of environmentalists. Of course, it's not clear why, it's not clear how many is a lot, basically. So we'll tend to not use it because it's not clear how many will be a lot. Similarly, so these are indicative examples that I'm giving. Let's say that climate disaster is sure to happen. Now, sure to happen is something that we'll use in an informal language, basically. Similarly, in the near future is uncertain. When in the near future? So, I mean, one has to validate it. Again, kind of going back to Nyaya philosophy, Nyaya talks about two kinds of claims to knowledge: valid knowledge and invalid knowledge. Obviously, valid knowledge is knowledge that is based upon pramana. Pramana is inference, perception, inference, comparison, testimony. Of course, we'll not go to that. So, but invalid knowledge is due to certain reasons, like memory, for instance. Now, you cannot make a research statement out of memory, for instance, even a memory of reading some text, for instance, because memory, as Gautama, as the Nyaya philosopher, would say that memory is a representative cognition. It's not a presentative cognition. In the same way, out of memory, let's say out of error, out of doubt as such, these are all kind of reasons of invalid knowledge. Even hypothetical reasoning, don't confuse it with hypothesis. There's a difference between hypothesis that you use in research. Of course, that's quite important. Now, what is hypothesis in research? Now, hypothesis is a tentative. It's a tentative explanation of the research problem, basically, of the thesis statement, based on certain relationships or certain assumptions that we draw between variables, if you're an economist, basically, and between kind of facts of literature, if you're a literary researcher. So anyway, the hypothetical is hypothetical reasoning is a reasoning, therefore, which is kind of purely based on assumption as such. Like if there were no fire, there would be no smoke. So, I mean, this is a hypothetical reasoning in the sense that there is no basis for making this kind of reasoning. More often than not, inadvertently, these all get into our kind of research language. Now, so the point I'm trying to say here is this: that there is a different kind of there's a different register altogether, and we need to kind of leave out many expressions that we normally use. Similarly, as a writer would do, as a creative writer would leave out kind of many expressions as such as one normally kind of does when one is speaking in an informal situation. That, for instance, if I could kind of translate the sentence or kind of rewrite the sentence which I just read, for instance, let me read that sentence again and then read the second sentence again. The sentence based on it, or rather more kind of giving it more kind of a research kind of a version. So a lot of, as I said, a lot of environmentalists believe that a serious climate disaster is sure to happen in the near future. The research has revealed that the erratic flooding is due to global warming. If you want to rewrite it in terms of research language, one would say it is widely believed by environmentalists that the second half of the 20th century might see a serious climate disaster. So I've changed with a lot of environmentalists believe to it is widely believed. Research writing prefers passive constructions, but not to be overused by the passives, but passive constructions. It is widely believed because the focus here is object, is a consensus among the environmentalists. The consensus is a focus. The focus should not be a vague group of environmentalists. So rather than making a vague group of a lot of environmentalists, it's better to kind of translate it in research writing, making the focus on the object basically. So it is widely on the belief as such. It is widely believed by environmentalists, therefore, that the second half of the 21st century, rather than in the near future, based on the secondary sources, if we can say, in the second half of the 21st century, might see increase in climate disaster. Now, the belief, rather than saying research has revealed. Now, whose research has revealed as such? Which research has revealed as such? And is reveal the right word to use? No, reveal is a wrong word to use here. Reveal is quite inappropriate as such to use here, right? So rather one would say this belief is supported. One has to come with a secondary source. So simply saying it is widely believed by environmentalists is not a good kind of research writing unless it is supported by an evidence. This belief, therefore, is supported by Smith 2013, who shows 60% increase in abnormal flooding since 1950 due to global warming. In other words, all academic writing actually invariably, therefore, depends upon sources, basically, depends upon evidence. Now, you cannot have a research problem, as what you call as research problematic, for instance, just in the air. I mean, you cannot just think about a research problem, right? So that's why in PhDs, invariably, of course, now also under the UGC regulations, you get 1 year to formulate a research problem on people who are actually who aspire for doing PhD, or similarly that you take a lot of time to formulate a research problem for postdoctoral research, because obviously the research problematic as such will be based upon one's reading of all available secondary sources as such, and therefore secondary sources are important. Not that one's research is based upon secondary sources, of course, because that would then involve plagiarism. Plagiarism is not simply copying of language, but plagiarism also means copying of thought. You cannot just borrow somebody's thought as such, right? So, but then what do you do? I mean, secondary sources, you study secondary sources, and then one would find out where one can go further. But how can, I mean, there are two kinds of research possible, obviously. One is, of course, that you find something entirely new, original, of course, which is more or less kind of in humanities as such. Generally, it's a new configuration, a new analysis, as a new way of looking at a certain problem or a certain text that you provide as a researcher. So what I'm trying to say is this, that based on evidence, obviously, when you make statements based on evidence, it would involve a different kind of structuring, basically structuring of sentences, and if one structures the sentences, of course, I mean, how do you do it? I mean, first of all, you develop, and what is responsible, or by following what actually that one develops and gives shapes to a research text as such. Obviously, you have, as I said, what you structure paragraph, or you structure facts within sections and paragraphs to cohesion of text. Now, what I mean to say is, how do you connect paragraphs? How do you connect facts, basically? And again, to use an Indian concept theoretically, of course, theoretically gives a good paradigm of it. In Nyaya, again, in Mimamsa and others, of course, they have three concepts of Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi. Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi, which is this, that when one looks at discourse, of course, discourse, and the relationship between one sentence and the other sentence, and the relationship between one paragraph and the other paragraph, because these are all language philosophers, basically, all the early Indians were. They posited that two sentences or two words and sections of discourse must be informed with akanksha. Akanksha means mutual implication of expectancy, mutual expectancy, basically. What it means here is this, that one sentence and the next sentence, one paragraph and the next paragraph are, in the sense that they are interrelated in such a way that they stand in need of one another to convey a complete sense. So there's a line of arguments. When one reader is reading or research, she should see a line of argument, and how to kind of connect your facts or connect your argument, basically, unless one sees that a paragraph is incomplete without the next paragraph, and that paragraph is incomplete without third paragraph. And then one sees a kind of a mutual sort of a cohesion that a text enters into. In the same way, yogyata and sannidhi. Sannidhi is close proximity. It's not something that you say right now in the first sentence. For instance, if I go back to the example that I had read, there is no sannidhi as well in that example. So if I read it again, a lot of environmentalists believe that a serious climate disaster is sure to happen in the near future, and research has revealed. You see, there's no sannidhi, in the sense that there is no close proximity between these two sentences. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say here is this: that at the level of language, one can actually work in giving this kind of close proximity, in fact, in writing a sentence, which in fitness of conveying a sense, it follows from the previous sentence. But all of this depends upon actually one formulating what is called a thesis statement. Generally in research, if you have formulated the thesis statement as such, the work is almost 30% done. A thesis statement, as it can be interpreted, is a statement, of course, especially in advanced research. Advanced research makes a claim as such. It's not a description. Mostly, when one sees research projects, or even the topics and titles of research articles, they seem to be descriptive. Let's say they seem to be descriptive as such. Whereas a research title, research topic as such is expressive of a research problem or a research problematic, and needs to be argumentative, needs to make a claim as such, makes a claim that, let's say, the literature on climate in the 21st century is grounded on scientific evidence, rather than cultural context, let's say. So I'm making a claim that literature on climate in the 21st century is grounded on scientific evidence rather than cultural context. Now, somebody might say, prove it. So obviously, then of course I depend upon my secondary sources. I've read my secondary sources if I'm doing pure kind of qualitative research or literary research, and I make an argument as such and go forth. And this will give me my hypothesis. A hypothesis, when somebody says prove, now I've just written a synopsis. How can I prove it? It's only begun. Then I have some tentative explanations. The explanation that I might reject later on if I have evidence which is wrong. And that's why there's a philosopher who is very important in this context, Karl Popper. Karl Popper's book, The Logic of Scientific Discovery, of course. And Popper engages, in rather, Thomas Kuhn and Karl Popper. Thomas Kuhn, as you know, was the one who gave the concept of paradigm. His book, The Structure of Scientific Revolution, was important. The fact that researchers always work in paradigms. A group of researchers works in certain paradigm. Let's say post-colonial studies. Scholars all around the world in this field share certain assumptions, certain tools, certain methods as such. So that's paradigm. Now, Popper gave a wonderful concept, of course, of falsification, which is this, that every work of research should be conscious of the fact that it can be falsified. You might say that, well, this seems contradictory because research makes a claim to knowledge. And where Popper is saying that it can be falsified, he says no. But what he means is this, that a research should be conscious of the fact that given these grounds, it can be falsified as such. And since those grounds do not exist, then there lies the strength of research as such. Now, how does it reflect in research writing? Now, and it reflects mostly, reflects in synopsis, but also in the concluding part of a research. Concluding part of a research should never make declarative statements, basically, because these are universal statements. Because your research is a part of a particular kind of study of a phenomenon. Research is an ever-going process as such. So the history of research as such. So generally, more or less in a tentative language that one would like to conclude one's research. So I think that's what it is, a short kind of expression of how I thought I should address you. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for this enlightening session on the topic. I hope that the participants have got an excellent start for the FTP starting today, and your discussion has magnified our objective of this initiative that we have taken through the Faculty Development Program. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Of this inaugural session, let me now invite Dr. Nikhil Rajput, convener of this Faculty Development Program, to brief the participants about some important instructions regarding the FTP and also to give away a formal vote of thanks. Dr. Nikhil, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you, Amrita ma'am. So for the participants, just a brief instruction for them. You will, I hope you all have registered on the portal, and you will get all the lectures and all your quiz and assignments there only. There's no other way of communication. So please make sure that you have registered on the portal. And all the quizzes and assignments, please submit it on time because extension might be, very difficult for us to give for all the quizzes. So, for any type of communication, if you face any kind of problem, then there's a mail, and there's also discussion forum on the portal where you can put your queries and your doubts. So please go ahead. We are pleased to inform you that there are more than 250 participants in this program, and I hope you will learn a lot. So I'm just beginning with the vote of thanks, and I would start thanking Professor Dhananjay Singh. Sir, you have set the tone for this FDP, and I hope that whatever you have covered, you have covered all like a different kind of languages of research, and how it is different from research writing, how it is different from non-academic writing, styles of writing. So many things you have covered, and I hope the participant will learn a lot from your session. So thank you so much for sir for being here. I would like to thank the Chandrasekhar sir for delivering the tone, like how he also mentioned like how to how research is important in the academics world. Thank you to our director, Teaching Learning Center, Ramanuja College, Professor S.P. Agarwal. He is the lightning guide behind us, so that because of him we have managed to conduct so many programs. I would like to extend my thank to Professor Sudhir Kumar Sinha, Principal Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, for he connected this academic writing with NEP, and which is very important for us to understand. Thank you to our organizing team, Saurabh Dubey sir, our team from Ramanujan College, Vipin Rathi, Ashish Shukla, Dr. Ashish Shukla, Amrita Kaur ma'am, Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, organizing team, Sachin Tomar, Dr. Sachin Tomar, Ms. Pooja Sharma from Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, Shipra Yadav, all our non-teaching staff, and all our members, and very thank you Professor K. Lata, because she agreed to come in the very short notice. Our principal was busy in some kind of meeting, so thank you, Lata ma'am, for being here. And I hope if someone I forgot to mention any name, please excuse me for that. And thank you all the participants to join this program, and I'm sure that you will learn a lot. And yeah, happy learning. Thank you. So I think Amrita ma'am, yeah, we can stop here.
Stop the live.